So I come from a family of very busy people.
We're not super productive or super achievers. We're all just super busy. And I was no different. I was super busy building my retail empire. Work for me meant long hours. At any given point of time, I had between 12 and 20 tabs open on my laptop. At any given point of time, I had between 12 and 20 tabs open on my laptop. Meetings were a great time for me to catch up on my reading. I was texting all the time. And date night for me meant a glass of wine in front of the TV with my partner, which was also a great time for me to catch up on doing my nails and waxing my legs. Yeah, that was my idea of romance. But that is another story. This is about October 2011. We were about to open our second store, and I'd found an old bungalow. It was moldy and decrepit, and I used to joke that it was haunted as well. Every time I walked into the bungalow, I'd start coughing, and I'd say that it was the friendly ghost that was inhabiting my body and trying to communicate with all of us. My team didn't find this very funny, and after 3 weeks of this, the joke wore thin. They came up to me, and they said they were really worried for me and wanted me to go see a doctor. I rolled my eyes and told them how much work we had left to do before store opening, but just to appease them, and also because by then they were insisting, I went to see the neighborhood family doctor. God bless her. Mrs. Sheikh, Dr. Sheikh, was a lovely old lady, and you could go to her for anything from a viral fever to a venereal disease. She took one look at me, examined me, and said I was going to be fine in a week if I just took this little white packet of pills that she gave me. I distinctly remember they were baby pink, cornflower yellow, and sky blue. I took the pills, went right back to work, but after a week, I wasn't fine. In fact, I got worse. Until we got to about 2 days before store opening, I remember waking up in the middle of the night with excruciating pain in my chest. I called a doctor in the family, and he just said to me, "Go tomorrow morning, get an x-ray, and go see a chest specialist, and don't wait." I began to protest, of course, but a lot more feebly by now because I was in so much pain and I could barely breathe. The next morning, I dragged myself to the doctor. He was a surly guy, not friendly at all, and in a very shabby office. And I was like, this is the chest specialist? He took one look at me and said, very grimly, "Madam, you have tuberculosis. In fact, you have so much tuberculosis that it has ruptured your lungs." That explained the pain. I was shell-shocked. But I do remember that the first question I asked him was if I had inadvertently infected my family or my staff. And I remember that the second question I asked him was, when can I go back to work? He looked at me straight in the eye and said, "Well, you are about 2 days away from death, but you can go back, sure." And so I rested for 2 days and then went back to work. Yeah. It was business as usual. I was on 4 TB drugs, haggard, gaunt, exhausted. I was nauseated all the time, and I was spewing orange sweat that stained all of my clothes. But I had an empire to build. This went on, and a few months into my treatment, I happened one day to come home early from work. I must have had a meeting close to home and just thought, I could finish off work at home. It felt really strange walking in at that time of day. It was daylight. My 2 boys were just home from school, and they were tearing the place down with 2 dogs in tow, and it was utter chaos in the house. They seemed happy enough to see me, and they were like, "Hey, Mom!" And they just kept playing. And I said, "Oh my God, this is good. I'm going to get myself a coffee, open up my laptop, and sit at the dining table, finish my work, take all of this in. It was going to be great." I began working, and as they were racing around me, they started telling me about their day. And they told me that they had a big carnival coming up in school. And all of the kids were asked to volunteer what their parents could do for the carnival. My 2 boys decided, and they decided very proudly, they said they met at lunch break and conferred and decided that because I was so ill, so much for hiding that fact, and because I was working so hard that they weren't going to volunteer me at all. Instead, they would take every last bedsheet from the house and offer that up as tablecloths for the stalls at the carnival. They just threw this at me and ran off. But I stopped. I stopped for what was possibly the first time in my life. And I couldn't believe that here were two people under the age of 10 who meant the world to me, who could see what was going on with me, and I couldn't. I felt so foolish. Here I was, building my castles in the air, when paradise was right here before me, and paradise was so nearly lost. Today, my life is very different. When I work, I have one tab open. When I read, I'm just reading. And every other day, we have Alexa wars in the house. It's kids versus mom and dogs. It's Pink versus P. Diddy. And I have to say, I'm very busy doing just that. Thank you.